Can you hear me now? Let's see. Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Can you hear me now? There we go. Okay. Well, I'm a boomer, so I guess I didn't realize that I needed to add the audio device onto this thing in order for it to work. So but I think I got this working now. Okay. I am a complete boomer. Sorry, guys. Now I think we have audio. I'm just going to wait a couple minutes in case anyone else is going to pop in, but then we'll get started. Sorry for the technical issues. Again, you know I'm old, so technology doesn't work well with me. So yeah, so let's see. Somebody's on here. I think Scoob was on here. Yeah, let me start the correct stream here. There we go. Somebody else hopped on. Okay, I think I know what to do. So let me... Can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys see me okay? Just getting some final things set up here. Just want to make sure everything's working properly. The sound is good. Hey Manson, how's it going? Happy to see that you've popped in. Thanks for supporting me. I'm going to give it like 2 more minutes and then I will start the presentation. Yeah, how have you been, man? Still doing a lot of Arkham? I've been busy with so many projects, but this week I'm going on vacation, going to Newport Beach, Oregon, and that's going to be a blast. Lua and I rented a hotel. It's got a jacuzzi in the room, which is really cool, so I'm really excited. It's going to be the most relaxing vacation ever, and it's going to be nice to just get away from all the hard work that we've both been putting in. It's our 10-year anniversary, 10-year wedding anniversary, so that's a big one. It's a big one. All right, so it's been 2 minutes. I guess people just trickle in, but I don't want to wait too long. I'll just go ahead and get everything started. Hopefully they realize that the other stream that was scheduled, for some reason it didn't link up properly with my streaming service, so I had to initiate a new stream. Hopefully they figure that out and pop in here before I get too far into this, but I'm not going to wait any longer. Just going to go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about art in tabletop role-playing games. So there are a lot of people that are making their own adventures, their own games, and all that kind of stuff for their favorite tabletop role-playing games, and or making their own. And one of the big questions all the time is art, especially now that the art discussion has become a little bit more divided because AI is so prominent. So we'll be talking about AI art in this presentation just a little bit. But we're going to talk about quite a few things today. So what we will be discussing, this is the first part of 2 parts of the video. We're going to talk about the importance of art in your role-playing game and role-playing game product. We're going to talk about different options that you have in regards to commissioning art or getting art to add to your book. We're going to talk about AI art, as I mentioned earlier. We're going to talk about where you can find artists for your projects and what considerations there are when you're looking for an artist. So let's go ahead and get started. So why is art so important? I put a lot of covers for different games and adventures here because I like the artwork in all of these. It's very evocative. It sells the book. So someone said this, I don't know who to attribute it to, but someone said art sells books, and that is a fact. There is nothing that's going to sell your book better than good artwork. You can have the best marketing campaign for your project, and if your art is terrible, your project will more than likely fail, even if it's really good. Art tends to be the first thing that people see, and with that, they make a determination on whether your game is going to be a quality product. If it's written well, if you put in the time and effort into it. People's brain just quickly analyze whether a book is going to be worth their time and hard-earned money, because most of these books are $50 or $60, and that's, for a lot of people, several hours worth of work in order to buy this book, and you don't have time to flip through it and see if it's a quality book. So your brain automatically uses the cover to tell you whether it is something that's going to be worth your time and your money. So when you look at a really compelling piece of art like this alien role-playing game adventure, Heart of Darkness, it really sells what the adventure is selling, or at least it implies what the adventure is selling. There is this deep void in space, kind of a black hole here, and just kind of very ominous and lingering on the bottom of the page is the shape of an alien creature. It's really evocative and really, really cool cover. I like it a lot. I would buy this if I saw this on a shelf. Another cover, the Cults of Cthulhu. Look how cool this is. There's lightning crashing. I mean, it really sells like the feeling of darkness and evil that is overcoming this. You've got the player characters, the heroes, are getting overwhelmed by ghouls, while this cultist is standing at a sacrificial altar and holding a sacrificial knife and just raising his arms out like he's got all this power. The D&D Monster Manual. Look how cool this piece is. Basically, the beholders chasing the heroes. They're not confronting it and winning the combat. They don't look confident. In fact, one of them is running away. The other one's scared but trying to hold them off. The way the image is coming at you, there's a lot of action and a lot of movement. There's lightning crashing in the background. It really sells that this is the monster manual. This is the dangers that your player characters are going to encounter. Then you've got the Shadow Dark role-playing game cover. It's black and white, but it says a lot with that. It's saying old school. The art style is very old school, so it's selling that to the... Oh, you only see page 1. Okay. Let's go back and do this again. Why is this not working for me? I am a boomer, guys. Let's try this again. PowerPoint... Let's see. Sorry, I have to interrupt it. Let's see if this works. Does it? It does not. My dog's barking. I cannot figure out why this is not working right, so we're going to just zoom in and just kind of go from this part of the presentation, I guess. Unfortunately, I can't figure this out. I can't fix it, but we're just going to keep going. So I see that it is kind of on the side, so let me adjust the screen. I'm so sorry, guys. It's been a while since I've streamed, and I'm not good with technology. I work in tech, but I'm not good with technology. Okay. That, I think, is going to look better. So there's part 1. Hopefully you guys can see the next screen. Yep. Sweet. Okay, so these are the covers that I was talking about. they really evoke quite a feeling when you look at them. They sell the books. They're really, really awesome. Clearly, the artists are very talented, and the company knew what they wanted when they made these covers for these books. And these sell the books. I mean, Shadow Dark role-playing game alone, as an indie role-playing game, it's incredible what it accomplished. It sold 1.5 million copies on the Kickstarter, or $1.5 million, sorry, on the Kickstarter. It did really well, and I think part of it is the art. Now, let's take a look at some covers that maybe didn't work so well. So, the first is a role-playing game called Terramentia. This was a Kickstarter that failed. Unfortunately, between the font, which is also part of art, right? So the font and the logo of the game looks kind of handwritten. The word itself is not an easy word to pronounce, but then throw on top of that just the way that the text is written, the font is kind of confusing. It's all over the place. The art itself feels a little bit amateurish. I don't want to be too hard on the artist, but you kind of need to put in a little bit more work in order for that to be a selling point for your book. People see this and they automatically are going to think, well, they didn't put that much work into the art, so maybe they didn't put that much work into the actual role-playing game. Glory Hole Dwarven Mine. This art is notoriously one of the most hated pieces of art for whatever reason. It doesn't really sell what this is about. It's a little bit confusing. There's some books in the background. There's too much text on the cover. Then you've got this Fatal game. The art looks a little bit childish. It's clear that they're trying to go brutal and hardcore with a lot of sex. And yeah, sex sells, but you have to do it right. You can't just put naked people on the cover and draw them like in a very childish manner, you know. So the art here for this game is also pretty universally panned. Yeah, yeah. The third art is good for kind of a metal. Yeah, I mean I can agree with that, but it doesn't sell a role playing game that's supposed to be hardcore. At least not to me, and apparently to a lot of people. Then you have the last one, Endless Sand. So what I mentioned, sex sells. Yeah, they put a little bit too much of that in this one. This is supposed to be an Arabian Adventures book, but you wouldn't get that from looking at the cover. A lot of times you're walking down the store aisle and you'll see this book and you'll be like, oh, it's a sex book or whatever. It looks like some kind of romance novel or something. And you may not read the smaller text that says Arabian Adventures. And even if you do, you get the wrong impression as to what this is supposed to be. From my understanding, Endless Sands is a really good product, but its reach was limited because of the artwork that they chose to use. It's kind of unfortunate. So, what options are there for the art in your role-playing game? The first thing that we'll talk about is art that is free. There is art online and in the public domain that you can use freely without having to pay anybody. That is pretty good if you're trying to save money and put out your product with as little cost as possible. So there are several places where you can find art that's free. DriveThruRPG is one of the biggest retailers, online retailers for role-playing games and campaigns and adventures. DriveThruRPG has a whole section for royalty-free art, public domain art that you can use, and it's kind of been tailored towards adventure role-playing games, whether it's fantasy or even modern style. So you can use a lot of that art in your game. There's a lot of art in Creative Commons as well that you can use, and in the public domain. Now, art in the public domain is a little bit harder to find, so it's kind of hard to imagine a scene and find the right art for it. So that's one thing that's kind of a drawback with public domain art or Creative Commons. DriveThruRPG at least is kind of filtered that art, so it's a little bit easier to find what you're looking for, but you're never going to find the exact piece that fits the scene exactly as you intended. So that is one drawback to getting art that's free. You know, you get what you pay for in a way. Not to say that a lot of the free art is bad. It's not. There's some great pieces of art, but they may not fit exactly what you're looking for your product. So the pros of getting free art is that you can't get any cheaper than that. It's free. And the cons are that you'll see your art in other pieces. Because it's free, it's going to be rampant. Other people, if it's especially a very compelling piece of art, you're going to see many other projects and products that use that same piece of art that you're using. The next type of art that we're going to discuss is the lower cost art. It's not quite free, but it's fairly affordable. Most of it would be stock art. So stock art is art that you can buy, that you can use for commercial purposes. And sorry, I need to adjust that screen. No problem. That you can use for commercial purposes. There's a lot of websites that sell stock art: Alamy, Shutterstock, iStock, Adobe. A lot of it is decent quality, but there's a lot that's kind of more basic or clip art style. So you kind of have to filter through it quite a bit in order to find something that you're looking for. Usually the price of this type of art is about $1 to maybe $100 for a piece. It's a lot less costly than commissioned art. And because there's a little bit of a paywall, you're less likely to see the same piece of art in another similar book to yours. It's kind of like how open source is. It's a difficult option if you have a very specific scene or character in mind that you want to portray in your book. But, you know, it's at least something, and higher quality generally than the free art. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that some stock art does use AI generated art, and though some people have a problem with AI art, it's actually a little bit more complex than some people give it credit for, because a lot of the companies, for example Adobe, they source their origin, where the AI takes its inspiration from. They source that from artists that do get paid for the art, so it is a ethically sourced AI art, and a lot of people don't realize this. But if someone sees AI art in your product, usually they're going to come back at you, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But just keep in mind that if your intent is to not use any AI art in your products, be careful, because stock art does tend to use AI sometimes. The next type of art, or actually before we get to that, so the two options that we just talked about, free art and low cost art, I recommend you use it for internal art. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's not something that is going to attract people when they're walking through a store shelf. Only when they flip through your book are they going to see this art. And some of it's very good, again. So it's important that you don't use it for like your cover. I really highly recommend you do not use it for your cover. So this piece that you see here on the screen, this is a piece that I actually am using in my adventure, Horror Ishizu Landing. It's in my book. I also saw this piece inside another third-party book that's on sale at Target right now. It's a book that has like a purple cover with a Medusa head. If you see that book at Target, flip through it, you'll see this piece. But the reason I'm showing you this piece is to illustrate the point that the art that you source from stock art and free art, you will see other products using. And in this case, it's a little blurry, but there's a Kickstarter going on right now as we speak called Adventures Dark and Deep. It uses this exact same art that I'm using in my book, art that another book that I saw is using inside. So now if someone were to buy my book and see this piece of art, it's going to confuse them. They're going to say, is this related to Adventures Dark and Deep? Or let's say they buy that other book with the Medusa cover. It can cause a little bit of confusion. So I highly recommend, even though this piece is a great piece of art, I highly recommend you do not use free or stock art for your book covers. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is low to medium cost art. So how this works is you commission an artist for black and white art, and black and white art tends to cost a little bit less because the coloring does take some time, especially high quality coloring. So if you source black and white art, you can still get some great pieces and pay a much lower price than you would for a full color art. So you would commission the artist and let them create this art for you. High quality. It is the exact piece that you want. It's just going to be black and white. Now, there are pros and cons to this. So obviously, if you order black and white art from an artist, it's going to be less expensive than full color art, and you can get some really good pieces. The cons, though, are the theme and the implication of having black and white art in your product may not work for what you're looking for. So if your product is supposed to be like, say, a fae book where it's supposed to be very colorful and festive and things like that, black and white art may not sell that theme very well because it's going to imply a darker tone, a darker, more old school tone. The next type of art is going to be the medium cost art. So basically this is where you commission an artist, but you let them own the piece, or you make a deal to give them, potential new customers due to being part of your project. So one thing that I recommend, so if you're going to use that as kind of a selling tool to reduce the cost of the art, have them reduce the cost, but don't try and commission an artist and tell them that you'll give them some recognition and potentially new clients by being part of your project as long as they give you the art for free. Do not do that. It is very unethical. Art takes a long time. It's a lot of hard work. A lot of times you have them redo certain parts of the piece, and it's just not fair to have an artist work. Sometimes pieces can take 4 hours. Sometimes they can take over 80 hours to do. And it's just not fair to have an artist do several pieces for you, several months of work for free. That's just not cool. I highly recommend you don't do that. You'll see a lot of people online recommending this, and some people recommend this as an alternative to AI art. I think this is far worse than using AI art. I think it's extremely unethical to try and force a struggling artist to give you free art just for the potential to maybe reach new clients. Anyways, enough of my rant about that. So usually you're going to pay between $100 to $500 per piece of art. So the piece that you see here on the right is a piece that I commissioned from an artist. He owns the rights to the piece, but I have a license to use it in my product and several marketing materials for my product. And this is one way that you can save money. You let the artist own the piece. That artist can sell merchandise. They can sell prints of this piece of art, and I can't do anything about it because they own it. But I commissioned the piece and I told them exactly what I wanted them to draw, and we worked together to make it. But I benefit because I pay a little bit less and they get to own the piece, and I still get to use it in my product. So that's the drawback of it, is that you don't really own the piece completely. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is the higher cost art. So art that is going to be the most expensive is going to be commissioned artists where you own the piece completely. Yes. This art can be very, very expensive, but you're going to get some stunning pieces and you get to do whatever you want with it. Now, legally, the artist is still the artist, so they can still use this piece of art in their portfolio. They can use it in their resume. You cannot do anything about that because they did draw it, and they can put it on their website and say, hey, I drew this. That's totally fine. But usually, depending on the contract that you draw up, they cannot make money off the piece if you go with this route. So something that's very important here is knowing how to write up the contract properly so that you can make the most of it. Now, don't try to limit the artist, but if you do want to keep things in-house, then this is the route you want to go. A lot of companies do this. Roll for Combat, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu. They commission artists and they own the piece. The artist draws it, and you notice that these artists, they may put it on their portfolio, but the companies can reuse the piece in multiple products and things like that, and they do that. I know Arkham does, and Magic the Gathering and things like that. So they'll reuse the pieces because they fully own the piece. But the only thing is that this can get very expensive. Usually you'll pay $600 to several thousands for a piece that you own and you commission an artist for. This piece here that you see is part of my adventure, and I do own this piece. I went with this option for this piece, so I can use it in print. I can sell posters of it, whatever I want. The artist drew it up for me, and they can still share it, but they cannot sell it. Excuse me. So there's many things that you can put into a contract. The two options that I gave here are the three options: the black and white, the medium cost, and the high cost art. That's just the way I do my contracts with the artists. You can go online and search up different contracts for work that you want to commission, and you can modify the contract whichever way you want. As long as both parties agree that the contract is fair and both agree to go forward with this contract, then cool. You can do a mix of these things. You don't have to do it exactly how I did it, but just know that in order to save money, usually you want to give those freedoms to those artists. If you want full control, you're going to end up paying a little bit more. So that's the most important takeaway here. Now, there are other options for you to get art for your product, for your role-playing game product. One option is to learn to draw and paint yourself. So this piece is one that I'm working on. It's not finished. I'm drawing an orc. I did this. I not only commissioned artists and not only bought, art from stock and Adobe stock, basically, commissioned artists, all that kind of stuff. But I also took some courses on Udemy and taught myself how to draw and paint. I'm still not super great. I'm not going to be able to make a piece as good as the ones that I showed you, but I'm getting there. And some of these pieces are going inside the book. They're going to be smaller frames inside a page. So, it's not going to be super noticeable if the art isn't super stunning, but it does the job, and I can do basically the exact scene that I'm looking to do and make it look exactly how I want. So that is one option. Now, it is time consuming and you have to put in the work. So if you're teaching yourself how to paint and draw, it is not easy. You have to practice every single day. You have to buy yourself a drawing tablet. You have to do it right. So if you're not willing to do the work, then you're going to spend a little bit more money. Then the final option is the controversial option. So AI art. Actually, let me show you one more piece here that I drew. Then we'll talk about AI art. So this is one that I'm also working on. It's not quite done, but this is the progress, right? So the sketch and then the the different details as I refine them to make the art. It is a lot of work. Art is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. This piece I've been working on for a couple weeks now. So yeah. Manson, yeah, it is a double-edged sword for sure. AI is controversial. There are some people that don't quite understand how AI works, and they're just, rage online. It is more nuanced and complex than some people give it credit for. Some people are just AI bad, and that's not necessarily the case. AI can serve several functions for artists and for people looking for art. You can use AI art to generate an image that's close to what you want for your book, and then send that to an artist and say, here, this is where I want you to draw something similar to this. So there are a lot of things that you can do with AI. It's a good tool, and not just that, but there are ethically sourced AI sources. For example, Adobe stock sources AI ethically, and I am using some AI art in my book from Adobe stock. And I put a disclaimer because I don't want the backlash. I'll probably still get backlash. That's just the nature of the internet. But just something to think about. It's more complex than people give it credit for. And speaking of AI art, so if you have good prompting skills, you can really get close to a specific scene that you want art for. The thing is that people will know right away that it's AI. For example, this piece. This is a role-playing game that's on sale right now. It is the best-selling indie role-playing game on DriveThruRPG at the moment, Baptism of Fire. What an awesome cover. It looks like a Manowar album or something, right? It looks great. But it's clearly AI. And a lot of people had problems with it. The book still sold well because, again, art sells books. Some people can get past the fact that it's AI, even if they hate AI, because they say, wow, damn, that cover looks so good. And they buy it anyways. Art sells books, right? So this is a controversial book because of the use of AI, not just on the cover, but the interior is riddled with AI art. I personally don't have a problem with it. They tried to save money. They did say that they tried to source art from artists, but it just got too expensive, and that's understandable. Trust me, I know. I paid a lot of artists to do art for my books, and it costs a ton of money, and that kind of sucks. But you have to do what you feel ethically is ethical for you to do. What I did with my book, I used a mix of the options that I talked about here to get the most out of my time and my budget. Usually you're not going to be able to do all high quality, high cost art. It would just get too expensive, especially for a book with several hundred pages, because you're going to need dozens of pieces. And if each one is costing you over $1,000, you can do the math there, right? So you have to be strategic and mix and match the type of art that you're going to be using, and use some free art, use some stock art, kind of riddle them, inside your book, and sprinkle them around in your book, and as long as it kind of has a cohesive theme, you should be okay and you'll save a little bit of money. So where does one find artists for your book, for your role-playing book? There are several websites where you can source artists. These are only a few that I've used. There are many, many others. You can just Google it or search online. ArtStation is one where a lot of artists kind of have their profile. It's kind of like Indeed. Basically, they post their portfolio there. It's kind of like their resume, right? So it's kind of like Indeed, but for artists. So ArtStation is pretty good. Usually you can contact the artist directly and make a deal with them. There's DeviantArt, which works in a similar way, but the art is a little bit more spicy there. You can talk to the local community for your games or the communities that you're part of and get references from other community members who have hired artists. Fiverr is another option. This is where you can find an artist for a specific purpose, come up with an amount that you're going to pay, and then usually they set the price on Fiverr for what they're going to offer, and then you agree or not agree. And there's Upwork, my personal favorite place to go to find artists. Upwork, I found, has the most professional artists, but it's also the way the structure of the website is. You have the most freedom to work up a proper payment schedule as well as the proper contract. The deadlines and everything can all be done on Upwork, and it keeps the artist consistent and it keeps the artist at the price point that you set. So I really highly recommend Upwork if you're going to be commissioning an artist over any of the other options. For example, if you go with ArtStation or DeviantArt and contact an artist directly, I've done that, and you do run the risk of that artist either not finishing the work or taking so long that it goes past your deadline and now your book is delayed. You're literally at their mercy. So one thing to think about, artists, we'll talk about this in the next video, but artists are notoriously slow when they make art. It's very, very common. I mean, there are some that are very professional and will complete a piece when you tell them to. Sometimes it's beyond anybody's control, so I don't necessarily blame the artist. But that's just the nature of it. And everybody in the industry knows, even comic book art. Sometimes comic book companies have to commission a different artist to finish a part of a comic book because the artist that they hired for the comic didn't finish on time for the deadline and the book needs to be released. So if you contact an artist directly, understand that that is a risk that you're taking. Even if you send them a contract, they may not necessarily finish things when you ask them to, or even if you put it in the contract. Whereas a place like Upwork is great because you can set a payment schedule and pay strategically. So as they give you more updates for the job, then they get paid more. So until the piece is done, and then they get the final payment. It keeps the artist consistent and it keeps things on schedule. I really, really like it. So when you're looking for an artist, there are definitely considerations that you need to look into. So cost is one of the biggest things. Usually you'll have a budget. No one that I know of that's an indie game designer is loaded, right? Or rich enough where they don't care what the cost is, right? So cost is a big consideration, and you have to be strategic and do it properly. I myself had a mix of different sources for my art, and that helped me manage my costs. It still was a little higher than I expected, but it is what it is. Time is another factor that you need to consider. If you're doing AI or stock photos or things like that, that's artwork that's already done. So you basically are going to be able to get it instantaneously. Whereas commissioning an artist or drawing the art yourself, that can take time, and sometimes it's unpredictable, like I was talking earlier. So if you have specific deadlines to meet, make sure that you take that into consideration when hiring an artist. It's not fair for you to hire an artist and tell them they only have a week in which to do a really big splash piece. That's just not right, not fair, and it's not going to get done on time. I can assure you on that. Or if it gets done on time, it's not going to be a good quality piece. And then the other consideration is the blowback from the community. So be careful. Make sure that you research the artists that you're hiring. There are some artists that are controversial, so you may not know that when you hire them, and then now that's attached to your project or your book. So that's something that you have to be really careful about when you're looking to hire an artist. And then, of course, AI art. Some artists also source from AI. I don't have a problem when artists do that, but some people do. And if your customers know that that artist sources from AI, they may come at you for hiring that artist, for giving them money for their work, right? So these are things that you need to consider. How much are you willing to take in terms of blowback from the community when you make your project? Is it worth it for you to hire specific artists or use AI art or whatever in order for you to get your project done? And that does it for part 1 of this series on art in your role-playing game. I hope that you guys found this helpful, and I hope that the information that I provided is something that can help you if you ever have a project that you're working on in the future and you're looking to source art for it. The way I've done it is kind of what I've laid out here. It's a roadmap of the way I did things, and there are many other ways that you can do things, and there are other sources that you can probably get art from that maybe I haven't thought about. So this isn't an end-all be-all solution, but it is just what I did for my projects, and it's worked great for me. So, thank you, Manson. I'm glad that you found it interesting. I don't think we have too many people watching live, so I guess people will watch on the video on demand. It looks like we have 5 people on, but if you have any questions, go ahead and post them right now. I'll be happy to answer them. And if I don't see any questions in the next couple of minutes, we'll just drop off and end the stream here. Let's see if I can get my webcam working. Hey, I think it's working now. You guys can see me. Yeah, the beginning of this stream was a little bit of a disaster. I hope that people stuck around and were able to watch it once I was able to get things working with the microphone and the camera. But I've seen live streams on YouTube where they have people waiting for 15 minutes before they start the stream. And the video on demand is just like 15 minutes of just waiting screen and waiting music. So I'm pretty sure that the couple of minutes it took me to get this going were not too bad. Yeah, nobody's perfect. Definitely, I'm not perfect. Oh, man. All right. Well, yeah, it doesn't look like there's any additional questions. Thank you guys very much. I'm not quite sure when I'll do part 2. It'll probably be next week or the week after, but obviously I will post once I do. In part 2, we're going to be talking about when you do commission an artist specifically, how you can make the most of it, what kind of things you need to tell them, what kind of questions you need to ask. All that we're going to cover in part 2. So hopefully I will see you guys for that. And until next